Judy. Thank you. Good morning, friends. I want to extend a warm welcome to you today. Everyone is welcome here. You are welcome here regardless of your age, your race, your income, your religion, or the gender with which you identify. You are welcome here regardless of who you love, who you vote for, the regrets that burden you, or the mistakes you have made. In this faith community, we support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. Here, we revere the words of the great teachers, such as Jesus, the Buddha, and Confucius. It is, however, the task of every UU to be their own Buddha, their own Jesus. It is a cornerstone of our religion that each of us is the author of their own life experience, and through the practice of compassionate mind, we can heal our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and our planet. It is our work as a community to walk with each other along the spiritual pathways that lead towards happiness, compassion, and life fully lived. And while we are a safe harbor where there is solace and healing, we are also a launching pad from which we are propelled into the tumult of life to live courageously, justly, and lovingly. In this sacred place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captives free, and heal the brokenhearted. Here we have learned that to be fully human is to be fully divine, and that with a little help from our friends, we can each tell our own unique stories. So today, friends, I think we have a pretty interesting service. Today we're going to talk about going to an area we don't really talk much about, is Eastern religions, at least partially anyway. As you know, in the West, the three major religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, basically have the same root, believe in the same God. And the idea behind, and you'll get this later, the idea behind the Abrahamic religions, as they're called, is that God is the it to the universe. God made all this, and God is ultimately the person that we are responsible to. Now, over in the on the East, though, the Upanishads are the foundational document of the great religions over there: Taoism, Jainism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. And the Upanishads, the idea is completely different than it is in the West. The idea there is that you are the it of the universe. That's a hard one to get your mind around. So, but we'll be talking more about that later. So, at any rate, and we also have some folks who are going to talk to us using about elevator speeches. And in theory, every UU should have an elevator speech that they can use when they get an elevator. I have mine in front of me, and it's good for about 140 floors. So.
Autumn's leftovers. Rural and suburban householders are busy now with rake and fork and barrow, cleaning and neatening the dooryard, the lawn, and the garden. Everything must be in order for winter. But down the road and across the valley, where autumn itself is in charge, nobody is bothering with the unkempt look. Nature isn't very neat about such matters. Fallen leaves, restless as sparrows, rustle and scurry at the roadsides. Gray heads of golden fluff spill seeds on every passing wind. Milkweed pods send streams of silken shimmer in all directions. Wild grapevines and woodbine have been left dangling from trees and bushes, nooses for unwary feet. Ripe grass is sadly in need of comb and brush, but nature doesn't care. The floor of the woodland is littered with dead twigs and branches, pruned by wind and rain. Fern fronds lie sere and brown. Box elders emphasize their nakedness with tufts of keys that will dangle all winter. The abandoned oriole's nest has begun to fray at a high limber tip of the wineglass elm. Windows of tan needles prove that pines too shed foliage in the autumn. Man and woman must rake and cart away to soothe their conscience and prove their tenancy. Nature doesn't bother. The tree thrives on its own trash, and the seed sprouts in its parents' midden heap. Each new spring grows on autumn's leftovers.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. Judy, you want to give us a little? Perfect. And thank you all for your generosity that allows us to continue as the voice of liberal religion here in St. Joe County, Berrien County, rather. Sorry, St. Joe, the county I come from. So, okay. I know, terrible. So at any rate, now is the time for the story for all ages. So would all the young ones, and if there are any young ones that are out, yeah, maybe Vanessa, you would help gather them in sternly if necessary when it comes to my grandchildren. So at any rate, anybody else want to come? So there's up there you see there's a picture of something. What are we looking at? Does anyone know what we're looking at up there? Shiva, yeah, and the Indian god Shiva. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You got it right. And Shiva is a very important god to the Hindu people. One of the things that's why he's so important, or she is so important, is because Shiva is the lord of the dance. And when the Shiva dances, the dance transforms darkness into light. So do you guys know what I'm talking about when I talk about darkness? Did anyone here have any darkness? No, Rosie says no. How about anybody else? How about, has anyone told a lie in the last week? Just raise your hand. Wait a minute. Oh, we got one. Yeah. How about adults? Any adult? No, never mind. Okay, so yeah, we have some darkness in us that needs to be transformed. Everybody does, whether you're young or whether you're an adult. So today we're going to do the dance of Shiva. And how many people are up for that? Want to do that dance? Okay, well, it just so happens that we got some leaders here who are going to help us. I tried to stop getting so many people up here to do it, but there are a lot of people that want to do this. And I see Holly is very eager to help. Why don't you bring Ishmael with? At any rate, actually, you know, we don't really know the music to the dance of Shiva, so I'm just guessing what the dance of Shiva would be like. And to do that, I referenced my favorite Romanian dance band. So does anyone here have a favorite Romanian dance band besides me? Okay, Ishmael. Okay. Anyway, so I'd like everyone to stand up, and by everyone I mean anyone who has any darkness in them, please stand up. And so Harvey, and are you going to help lead a little bit? Okay, and Holly is going to help lead a little bit. Folks, Patrice, Holly, Harvey, and Diane, if they would give us an elevator speech. Does everyone here know what an elevator speech is? Pretty much, yeah. An elevator speech is when you try to communicate a very precise bit of information in a very short period of time. And it's usually an elevator ride. I don't know what the average elevator ride lasts, probably 45 seconds or something, but we decided we needed 2 minutes because you can lean on that door close button, you know, when someone asks you. So, and after Patrice speaks, I'll just say Holly, Harvey, and Diane, just come on up in that order.
I typed it into my phone, but I can read it off the wall. I was at a dinner party for, you know, I've had brain surgery. I'm not as smart as I used to be. Anyhow, the Avenue, I think it's called, on 139. It's a not-for-profit. Anyway, so I was there with some neighbors who, Julie knows Jean Blomquist. I think you know her. You do. Harvey. Anyway, I kept talking about you because you all are the center of my community. And Jean said, so what's this you about? And I said, well, I haven't read the book. I've only been a UU for 3 years, but this is what I said. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And that last one is so thoroughly taken to heart in this group that I was here last Sunday with my eldest sister, who's a rabid Roman Catholic. But she said she's been going to the same Mass for years, and the woman that sits in front of her, they never introduced one another until about a week or two ago. And I said, I know everyone in this room except visitors, but now I know a visitor. So that's my elevator speech. I think we went about 10 floors.
Okay. All right. So I think mine's actually really short. I didn't write anything out. So I just thought about it, and when I think about coming here, I'm also kind of like newer to UU, so I don't know a lot about it, like outside of here. But for me, what this place does is it creates a safe space to be able to like laugh and have fun, to talk about hard things, to explore different things, and yeah, that's it. It's just a safe place, and it's a welcoming place. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am, for those who don't know, Harvey Johnson. I am a Unitarian Universalist. Since around 1997, when Tricia, my wife, and I, living and working in Lansing, started attending UU Church of Greater Lansing, because this is what some of our educated atheist social worker friends were doing. It turned out well. But we soon moved back to our hometown, St. Joseph, due to my sister's health, and found ourselves at Buff around 2001. We raised our young daughters, Emily and Larkin, here until they moved away. As many of you know, the Universalists and the Unitarians got together in 1961 from those Unitarians believing in one creator as opposed to the Trinity, and those Universalists believing that all could find salvation, and quote, and as Marv Fuller used to say, there ain't no hell. These two groups split off from the Trinitarians during the Protestant Reformation, time of Martin Luther and John Calvin, and those that were reading the Bible in their own language for the first time, because it was all Latin before that. So people started reading it for the first time in their own language and saying, I don't know, where do you see this Trinitarian business? I don't see it. But that didn't go over well with people like John Calvin. Our guy here, Servetus, was burned at the stake for writing the errors of the Trinity. They hunted him down and burned him at the stake. It was tough times then. But as many of you know, UU is a liberal, religious, free-thinking co-op, and we all contribute what we can to support a democratic, loving, just future where all people of the world have inherent worth and dignity and are free to think and do for themselves. So join us for potluck after the service.
Okay.
morning, everybody. My name is Diane Gibbons, and I have a few thoughts about being a UU. First of all, I think being a UU gives me the freedom to choose my faith path. My faith path parallels our 7 principles and is nourished constantly by the philosophies and ideas from other world religions. As a UU, I recognize that all creation is sacred, no matter how big and small. And because of that, within my faith here at Buff, I have gained the strength and courage to stand up for what I believe is right and to try to live a very loving and compassionate life in regard to all beings. Within our community, I have found a family of like-minded people who strive every day to make this world a better place. And that's why I keep coming back.
Thank you for that. All of you, hope all of the rest of you are working on your elevator speeches and have them written down somewhere. When someone asked me if I have what is Unitarian Universalism? I'll say, well, you know, I hate to talk about my religion, but I do have jotted down a few things. No. So yeah, well, it's to me, it's a lovely thing being a Unitarian Universalist. I have to say, I went to seminary having been fed, I only really heard the old traditional, about 3rd grade level of religion that's taught in most churches. And when I came out of seminary, and even during seminary, I became a functional atheist. But I still had this religious impulse to continue to explore, and I started exploring other religions. And it was during that time that I really I became interested in the Eastern religions. When I was a young boy, I can't remember how old I was. I must have been pretty young because I was still had bare feet in the summer. In the summers on the farm, when we started driving tractors, we got shoes, but before that, it was bare feet. And I remember walking down the road to go through the center of our farm, just a private dirt road, and I looked down. I saw my footprint, my bare foot in the lane of the farm lane, and for some reason I said, "Oh, the footprint of God." And now I have to tell you that I was a good little United Methodist, at that time Methodist boy, and pretty sure that was just the worst kind of blasphemy there was. But it wasn't until I got to seminary and became somewhat disillusioned with Christianity that I started looking around. Now I see the genius of Christianity and the other religions. I'm able to reclaim the religions as being valuable, but at one time I was pretty depressed and distraught. But yeah, so let's begin. So I'm going to shift gears a bit in this sermon. I, as advertised, am going to do a very brief intro into the basic metaphysics of the Upanishads. Before that, I'm going to respond to a question I was asked by several people after I made a statement a few weeks ago that the genius of Christianity is that God becomes a scapegoat, the necessary sacrifice for humanity's sins. The question I was asked is, why don't you tell us what the genius of Unitarian Universalism is? I like that idea. I thought that it would be fun to do that for several of the old religions. What gives a particular religion traction in the human imagination? What gives a particular religion its zing? In the final session of this sermon, I will answer, for me at least, the question, what is the genius of Unitarian Universalism? What gives it its zing? I should note that the entirety of this sermon is my opinion. I'm pretty sure that theologians in the disciplines I'm speaking of today would have more refined thoughts on the subject and probably some strong disagreements. So let's begin with Christianity, the one we're most familiar with. What gives Christianity its zing is the efforts of God to reconcile with people. The story is a long one, beginning with how people fell out of communion with God after eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The rest of the story is God trying to get us back. He tries all kinds of things: the terrible flood, saving people from captivity in Egypt, giving the people the 10 Commandments, and sending prophets. Nothing really worked. So God decides to become a person, one of us, in the form of Jesus Christ. God then becomes a sacrifice for all our sins so we can live in peace, love, and harmony with one another. And the end results of that are still to be worked out. This is extremely powerful for the believer. It is the zing of Christianity. One bright byproduct of Christianity is modern science. Since God entered the world must be important and worthy of investigation. Most of the early scientists were clergymen. Think Nicholas Copernicus, Roger Bacon, Gregor Mendel, and Galileo, all clergymen. Let's look at what makes Judaism zing. In my opinion, what gives Judaism its zing is that they are God's chosen people. For many Jews, this is a distinctly mixed blessing. In my opinion, the genius of Jewish religion is rooted in the Talmudic tradition of argument and conflict. Being chosen, it is okay to pick a fight with God over how well God is doing his job. I refer you to the book of Job if you want to read a story of a man who disagrees pretty strenuously with God's motives, even God's morality. It is in both the Jewish and Christian scriptures if you want to give it a read. One of the most zingy things about the often contentious dialogue between God and the Jewish person is some seriously delightful humor. A poor man walking in the forest feels close enough to God to ask, God, what is 1,000,000 years to you? God replies, my son, 1,000,000 years to you is like a second to me. The man asks God, what is $1,000,000 to you? God replies, my son, $1,000,000 to you is less than a penny to me. It means almost nothing to me. The man asks, so God, can I have $1,000,000? And God replies, in a second. A Jewish grandmother, there's a lot of guilt in some Jewish people, and this kind of underscores it. A Jewish grandmother gives her grandson 2 shirts on his birthday. He goes upstairs and puts on one of the shirts. When he comes downstairs and shows his grandmother, she says, what's the matter? Didn't you like the other shirt? So, the last of the great Western religions we examine for zing is Islam. For me, the zing in Islam resides with its mystics and poets. Before I go there, I should mention briefly that Islam helped Western civilization keep its zing during the Dark Ages, when much of Christendom turned inward. The period between the 7th century and 13th century AD, while Europe was blacked out, the Muslim world preserved the Greek classics and translated them into Latin and made huge advances in medicine by contributing to the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of diseases such as smallpox and measles. Muslim doctors were the first to incorporate surgery, then a separate discipline, into the study of medicine to develop its practices and techniques. Can anyone tell me who did surgery before doctors in the West? Can anyone tell me who did that? Barbers, you are right. Whew, I love my barber, but... So this period of Muslim history also saw advances in mathematics, such as the inventions of algebra, spherical geometry, and the invention of the zero. Does anyone know what other society invented the zero? The Arabs were the first, but who else was invented in the Western Hemisphere? But you got it. The Mayans, yes. Okay. From retired UU minister, Hunter. Thank you, Hunter. As I mentioned, where Islam has its zing for me is its poets and mystics, such as Gibran, Rumi, and a newly found one, Hafiz. Actually, Leanne introduced me to Hafiz. And of course, the great Nasruddin, who may or not actually have been a real person. Here is some of their poetry and a story about Nasruddin. Hafiz, first. I wish I could show you, when you are lonely, are in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. Wow. My dear, is it true that your mind is sometimes like a battering ram running all through the city, shouting so madly inside and out about the 10,000 things that do not matter? Now, there's something interesting in this little bit of poetry about the 10,000 things. The 10,000 things is an expression that comes from Taoism in the East. You got to wonder, so was Hafiz, with the Tao Te Ching or some of the readings of other of the Taoists fall into his hands? I don't know. Finally, Hafiz says, forgiveness is part of the treasure you need to craft your falcon wings and return to your true realm of divine freedom. And Rumi's most famous verse, and I'm wondering after I read it, if you've heard either this or part of it, to raise your hand. Beth Lefevre, my predecessor in this pulpit, closes all her emails with this verse. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, and even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. How many people had heard that passage before? 1, 2, 3, few, yeah, 4, yeah, 5, 6, yeah. Now for Nasruddin. The mostly legendary Nasruddin was very wise and respected itinerant teacher and mullah. One day he walked into a small town and saw 2 workmen digging a sizable hole. He stopped and asked them what the hole was for. One of the workmen, who was kind of a wise guy, said, this is where we throw all the idiots who ask stupid questions. Nasruddin responded, who then will fill in the hole? So, there's another one. It's not written down here, but it's my favorite. It is my favorite Nasruddin story. But Nasruddin was such a great teacher. He had such a reputation. Everywhere he'd go, he'd come to some little mosque or some little village square or something. He traveled all the time, preaching and sharing his wisdom. And always someone would ask during the question and answer period, I suppose, oh, Nasruddin, how is it that you are so wise? Nasruddin, how is it that you are so good? Nasruddin, how is it that you are so well written and so well spoken? And Nasruddin would always reply with the same answer. I know because I know what is in the Quran. And so one day, Nasruddin travels and goes into this little town square and starts teaching, and people come to hear him. And they ask, after the teaching, they start asking the question, Nasruddin, how is it that you're such a moral man? Nasruddin, where do you get your wisdom? And Nasruddin responded several times, because I know what is in the Quran. Well, this was back in the day when the villages still had idiots. So the village idiot asked Nasruddin, well, what is in the Quran? And Nasruddin says, a pressed flower and a letter from my friend Abdullah. So I love that story, yeah. So let's get into some metaphysics. Meta means after. Metaphysics means after physics, which is where the material on this subject was originally shelved in the Great Library of Alexandria, Egypt, which was founded by, of course, Alexander the Great. A very interesting factoid you can mention the next time you're at a party and someone talks about a late library book or something, I don't know. In the West, whether you are Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, the story begins in the same place. An entirely other God creates the universe and you and me. We are the product of the mind of God. In the West, God is it with a capital I. In the East, the foundational documents are the Upanishads. Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Taoism begin there. In the Upanishads, you and I, you are it with a capital I. And here is the heart of the Upanishads and the great religions that grow from them. Now listen carefully for the punchline in this. It, with a capital I, is everywhere. Though we do not see it, just so, dear one, the self is everywhere, within all things, although we do not see it. There is nothing that does not come from it. It is the truth. It is the self supreme. And there are the three little words that punch you right in the face. You are that. You are that. So it's hard to get your mind around. Well, you really can't get your mind around it because, well, like a lot of religions, you just can't. So now you may be saying to yourself, I can get down with that. After all, our seventh UU principle said that we are all a part of a greater web of existence. The Upanishads are not saying that. They are saying that there is no such thing as parts. That you see the world of parts is an illusion. You are it. Now, holy mackerel, I am what? I am it? You're it? That's it? Now that is some real zing in my mind. So a young novice goes to the master and says, Master, I understand that you have attained complete enlightenment. The master responds, that is true. The novice asks, what have you attained from complete enlightenment? The master responds, nothing. If I had attained anything, it would not be complete enlightenment. End of story. And my addition to this is, what can you attain when you are it with a capital I? You already have it all. It is you. You are it all. Okay. A Buddhist monastery kept a young, this is a tough story, but it's got to remember this, it's very old. A Buddhist monastery kept a young orphan boy of about 12 to help in the kitchen. It was a practice of the master to call the monks into meditation by holding his index finger up in front of him, just like this, making eye contact. The young boy would often, for the entertainment of the monks, imitate the master by sitting in pose and solemnly holding up his finger. One day, he was doing this in the kitchen. The monks were in an uproar of laughter. The master walks in, sees what is going on, grabs the child's hand, lays it on the chopping block, grabs the cleaver and chops off the boy's finger. The boy runs off through the kitchen door, down the road a few yards, and turns back to see the master through the open door, holding his finger up. The boy was immediately enlightened. It is not the finger, it is about what the finger is pointing towards. It's pointing to you. The young boy went on to become a beloved master himself. I guess the finger is a small price to pay. It reminds me of a saying of Jesus, if your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and throw it away. Also a very severe sounding kind of thing. Also something that sounds like it could come from the East. There are lots of historical things that are interesting to know about the Upanishads. If you're interested, I invite you to do some of your own research. Take a look at some of the zingy things in those religions. For me, Taoism is the zingiest of the Eastern religions. The genius of Taoism is its recognition of the complementarity of light and dark, and that you need your darkness as much as your light to live a vital life. In the West, we want to deny our darkness by projecting it onto others. The Republicans, the Democrats, Hamas, Israeli, Putin, Stalin, and on it goes. And the killing continues. The zingiest part of Buddhism is in the first noble truth. Can anyone tell me what the first noble truth is? Can anyone? Yeah, I say it, you're going to know it. Life is suffering. As long as one is trapped in the world of illusion, Maya, where one thinks that one is an object among other objects, you will suffer. It is unavoidable. The hallmark of Buddhism is the realization that compassion for yourself and others is the only appropriate way of relating to those trapped in Maya. An important spiritual discipline for Buddhist meditation is Buddhist meditation. You are, after all, it. Sit quietly, and the true nature of being will break through the noise of your illusions. Sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes, and the grass grows all by itself. Zen Buddhism also has a lot of zing. Consider this old Zen saying, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. How many people think they know what that means? Yeah, okay. Well, if you want to know what it means, or want the opinion of someone who thought about it a long time, we'll join us for a circle talk, which we'll have about, we have a potluck today, aren't we? Yeah. Well, if you want to talk about it, bring your plate in, we'll talk while we eat. So, okay. We'll have that about 15 minutes after the service. Jainism is another Eastern religion with some powerful zing. Many Jains believe that all things have soul. In other words, all of existence is it. All people, plants, animals, insects, the atmosphere, the oceans, and faraway celestial objects have soul. What you do to the one, you do to the all. What you do to the all, you do to yourself. Accordingly, Jains have a very strict and somewhat radical practice of no harm. And incidentally, that sounds like it's very close to the kind of animism that many indigenous peoples practice, pre-literate indigenous peoples. We have already talked about Hinduism a bit in our kids' message, so let's move to the final question. What gives Unitarian Universalism its zing? What is its genius? I remind you that this is entirely my own opinion. What I'm about to say is not doctrine. For me, the genius of Unitarian Universalism is our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all persons, no exceptions. Every person is a unique platform for knowing and experiencing the world. As far as we know, we are the only species in the universe that is aware of the universe and conceives of having a self or having selves. It appears to me that our self-awareness gives us the capacity to experience existence tens of thousands of times more intensely than others in the animal kingdom. This makes every human life precious, really every life precious. So for me, the bottom line of inherent worth and dignity of all persons and the zingiest part of our religion is that everyone is welcome to be a part of this congregation, no exception. It makes no difference if you are a Baptist, a Buddhist, or have no religion at all. It makes no difference if you are a fascist or a socialist. It makes no difference if you are a Democrat, a Republican, or a communist. It makes no difference if you are gay or straight. Here we have learned to walk together as we give sacred expression to our lives, each of us in their own unique way. Now here's my elevator speech. For me, Buff is a clearing in the wilderness, a place of refuge, healing, renewal, and sanctuary for the bruised and tired. We are a workshop for spiritual growth and social environmental justice. We are a tool for breaking down barriers and building bridges. We are a launching pad that propels us into the world to live compassionate, vital lives. And I see that it's my floor. So thank you very much. And let's have a meditation, which will also be our final hymn. And it's coming. So Julie's coming forward to do that.
I extinguish our chalice as the winter darkness approaches, and take comfort from the light that Buff provides for us in the wider community.
Thank you, Julie. Now let's form up in a circle and do our benediction.